When someone comes across you or your business, they are going to look you up. And when they go to look you up, that's when you have to show up. So even if 3 people watched that video, it exists in the internet now, and someone's going to stumble upon it 4 years from now when they're doing some research on you, and it's going to resonate with them. And that's really the key, is telling a story that can make an impact with those that are ultimately going to be drawn into your circle so that you can make a positive influence in their life.
Hey there, reader and listener. Thank you for joining the Kerry Barrett Show. It's great to have you with us. And we have a fantastic guest for us today. His name is Glenn Lundy. And if you haven't heard of him before, I don't know what rock you've been hiding under, but this is your opportunity to meet the man behind the legend. And I say legend because he grew a dealership, a car dealership, 800%. in just a few years that he was there. And it's actually more than that. When you know a little bit about the demographics and where this dealership was located, the challenge that he overcame and the success that he had is then what grew his own motivational speaking business, his podcast. He took those lessons and moved them into a process to help others unlock their full potential. So without any further ado, Glenn, it's fantastic to have you with us.
Oh my goodness, it's fantastic to be here. Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Absolutely. I mean, I gave away some of the juice already, but tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I like to say, I'm a husband to 1, a father to 8. I have 8 beautiful babies that I love so much. I'm also the host of a daily morning show, hashtag Rise and Grind. We've done 1,280 something episodes, I think is what we're on right now, which is also a podcast and so on and so forth. And then, I'm an expert in the automotive space, and I have the honor of serving owners and general managers of car dealerships all over North America in a really unique and insightful way. It's amazing.
So tell us a little bit about that, the way that you work with dealership owners, et cetera. And then let's dive into some of the details.
Yeah. So blessed with the opportunity to work at a small dealership in a small town, starting in 2011. And we grew that dealership 800%, as you just alluded to. And in doing so, it drew a lot of attention because we were in a very small town, and we became the 2nd largest used car franchise dealership in America. So there was a lot of attention. And along the way, we did tons of social media because I needed to be able to tell a compelling story so that we could recruit incredible people. Like here I am in a small town, not a whole lot of employment, opportunities. And so we had to recruit people from out of the city and out of the state. And then we also had to get customers to come from out of city and out of state. And the best way to do that was social media. So we started doing a lot of things on social media to make an impact that way. And when we achieved the 800%, I felt called to do more, to help more dealers across the nation in different ways and to help other people in different ways. And so I felt called to do that. So it was great because we already kind of had, a little bit of a platform, already had some expertise, already had some experience and wisdom in a unique scenario. And so we've been able to leverage that now to where I'm literally like the only guy. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm the only guy in all of automotive that works with owners and general managers of car dealerships directly to help them scale and grow 800%. There's sales trainers in automotive, there's finance training, there's leadership training, so on and so forth. But most people that have the success that I had in store, they buy their own dealership or they buy more dealerships. They don't go help others grow dealerships. And so I created something that didn't exist in our market, which was training for the guys at the top, guys and girls, at the top. And it's been really fulfilling. It's been powerful.
It's interesting because that's that sort of blue ocean technique that we hear people talking about. Like the red ocean is filled with other people who are buying more dealerships, et cetera, et cetera. But you saw this space that needed, there was a gap there. I mean, was it that simple? Was it, oh, I'm the only person, there's nobody doing this, I should do this? Or how did you get to that end game? How did you come up with that idea?
Yeah. So first, Kerry, I spent 12 months doing what I'd seen other people do. So I left the dealership world, which everybody thought was crazy. And so I left the dealership world. And then I saw other people that were out doing consulting and the way they were doing it. And it was a lot of travel, in store, living in hotels, so on and so forth. So I did that for like 12 months. And what I realized is this model sucks, man. Like I'm away from my family all the time. The dealers really weren't getting a great benefit because I'm spending a day with them and they're excited about it. But 6 weeks later, they're right back to their old behavior patterns. There's no accountability whatsoever. And so I was like, instead of me going to them, let's see what happens if I bring them to me. Mm-hmm. So I did a 2-day workshop, had no idea what was going to happen. I said, hey, I'm doing a 2-day workshop. You guys come to Lexington, Kentucky. And 14 dealers showed up for that 2-day workshop. At the end of the first day, they were chomping at the bit for more information. So I woke up the next morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, they love this stuff, but I'm about to send them on their way. In 6 weeks from now, they're going to be right back to doing the same crap. I said, how can I change that? And it hit me like, oh, I need to bring them in as part of like a club, right? There needs to be membership with a recurring membership fee. And I can hold them accountable and we can meet every week and we can build a community. That way there's long-term impact versus just the hit it and quit it style is what I call it, right? We can actually build long-term relationships. So at the end of day 2, without any idea what I was doing, at the end of day 2, I said, hey, I'm creating something that's called the 800% Club. It's a monthly membership. We'll jump on live Zooms every week. And I'll hold you accountable and we'll build a community. If you're interested, sign up now. And 12 out of 14 dealers signed up. And that was the beginning of the 800% Club. So fast forward, it's been 4 years now. We now have 120 something different rooftops that we serve. The company has generated millions and millions of dollars in revenue. We speak all over the world at different things. Like it's insane, but it all started with looking at what everybody else was doing, going, this sucks.
Yeah.
They're not using modern technology. How can we get better results for our clients more efficiently and have it be less strenuous on me, right? And my family. Yep. And by creating that, we were able to create this blue ocean strategy that now has been very, very, very powerful.
I have about 55 million questions to ask you just from that tiny little snippet, but 100%, I get that. I mean, did you have 8 kids when you were in that sort of 12-month churn of traveling all over the place?
So I had 7. I've had one more and one more since then. But yeah, I just had my 7th when I did that.
Oh my gosh. And that is tough. It's tough being away. That grind is tough. I know the travel is, I would use a word that I probably shouldn't use, but it's tough. I'll leave it at that. Although feel free to swear. You're fine.
Okay, good. Shit, damn, hell. Go. Let's just get it all out.
Yeah, that travel's a bitch. That's not even
Travel's a bitch. Let's go.
So you mentioned the technology thing, and I have to say, I want to ask you a question about that because holy crap, it is, especially when you're dealing with an industry that is sort of has a tendency to stick with what, has always been done and that it's always been done. Like I'm dealing with some of the same things with my clients right now. I like to call them sort of dinosaurs, not to their faces, but behind their backs. It's like, oh my gosh, we could do this so much more efficiently if you would just get online and we could do things that way. Or same thing, I'm going to do a workshop for you. But I know that 6 weeks from now, everybody who was there is going to fall back into their own habits unless there's some accountability. So my question is this. You've obviously had massive amounts of success going from that original group of 14 to now hundreds in a matter of years. How did you communicate and get them to sign off on this whole new way of doing things?
Yeah, ridiculously hard. Like it's It's the most challenging thing, and we still battle that today, right? We are currently really just focused on brand awareness. Just letting people know we exist is challenging in itself. But then once they know we exist, getting them to understand that there's a better way and getting them to put their egos aside, because all of my clients are very successful, right? They all own car dealerships. They're very successful. They're all millionaires, multimillionaires. Like, these are high level business individuals. And so getting them to put aside their ego sometimes is super challenging. And they will come at me and say, well, this is the way we've always done it. And we've been in business for 50 years, Glenn. So obviously it works. I'm like, yeah, it does. But what I've had to do is slowly, methodically, over time, introduce them to new concepts beyond their current awareness. And when they have an aha, just one aha, then they're like, oh crap, I didn't think about that, right? I didn't think about that. Like, for example, I'll give you an example, Kerry, to make it very tangible. In 1973, NADA, National Automobile Dealer Association, wrote a manual on how to build a dealership and make $1 million a year. In this manual, it says that salespeople should sell between 10 and 12 cars per month. That's one car every 2 to 3 days that they're at work. That was written 50 years ago. Right now, in 93% of dealerships in America, the average salesperson sells 10 to 12 cars a month, one every 2 to 3 days. So this was put in place 50 years ago with no internet, no social media, none of the tools that they have today. It was much slower process to buy a car, right? Much slower process. People didn't have the economic, like the money wasn't there like it is today. And yet they're still holding people to the same standard. So I'll share that with a dealer and say, why are you accepting one car every 3 days from your people? It should be one car every day they're at work, at least with today's technology. And they're like, oh yeah, it probably should be. I've always done it that way, right? So I've had to introduce them to new concepts, and we do that a lot through social media, through our LinkedIn, through videos. And you got to just keep pounding these aha moments until something clicks and the dealer goes, all right, I never thought about that. I should probably see what this guy's all about. And maybe he can introduce me to some other concepts as well.
You mentioned twice now the importance of social media, and you mentioned video this time around as well. Has that been crucial? It sounds like it has been in not only awareness, but also education. How do you use social media and video in that regard?
Yeah, it's the greatest gift that we've been given in the last, especially 15 years, right? I got my first smartphone when I was 30 years old. I tell my kids this all the time. They want smartphones at like 5.
Right.
I'm like, I got a smartphone at 30. And I just remember how hard it was to get any kind of attention, any kind of message out, so on and so forth. So social media is a gift. And yes, it's something that you have to work, and it can be challenging and time consuming. And sometimes it doesn't feel very rewarding in the small. But what I've learned is there is a compound effect when you are consistently delivering a message on social, consistently showing up on social. And the best part is it's free. Doesn't matter what your income level looks like, your team. You can be a one-man, one-woman show. You can utilize this tool. But here's the part I think a lot of people miss. Some people say, well, I'm posting videos, but nobody's watching them. I don't get any likes. I don't get any comments. So I don't want to do it, right? They don't feel the reward. When someone comes across you or your business, they are going to look you up. And when they go to look you up, that's when you have to show up. Your message has to show up. So even if 3 people watched that video, it exists in the internet now. And someone's going to stumble upon it 4 years from now when they're doing some research on you, and it's going to resonate with them, right? And that's really the key, is telling a story that can make an impact with those that are ultimately going to be drawn into your circle so that you can make a positive influence in their life. So yeah, we're all about it. Push as hard as we can, get as much content out as we can, in expectation that when someone searches for us, when they need us, they'll be able to find us.
You'll be there. It's funny you say like somebody will find this 4 years from now. And I think sometimes that's what scares people from putting content out there. Like it's going to live, ad nauseum or ad infinitum. And I don't know where it's going to be and whose hands it's going to get into, but I'm afraid of the idea of me being out there for that long. And I'm always like, well, listen, if you're not out there, there's somebody else who was not afraid of that, or more likely was afraid of it and decided to do it anyway. And the other thing that I've noticed about social media is that any client that I've gotten from social media, I don't want to say any, but more often than not, the clients that I get through content are not the ones who are engaging. They're not the ones who are liking or commenting. They're the ones who are watching silently from the sidelines and absorbing it. And then when it's time, they go. And so, it may be that only 3 people see your post or comment or whatever it is, but that doesn't mean that the right person's not out there watching. Have you found that also?
Absolutely. And they might even not be watching. When they have a need, I show up, right? If you search the name Glenn Lundy on Google right now, dude, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, you're everywhere.
We're everywhere. We are everywhere. We've been making so much content for so long. Like if you search Glenn Lundy and then click video, you have to go something like 170 pages before you'll find any other video that's not Glenn Lundy. Like it's all there, and some of it's good and some of it sucks and some of it's ugly and some of it's great. Like it's all of the things, but ultimately the credibility that comes with that is tremendous. And it doesn't matter how great your product is or how great your company is, or none of that matters. If I go online and I can't validate you, I cannot get social proof that you're a real life human being that exists on this planet of social, then I'm not doing business with you. I just simply won't.
Especially in the day of AI, you need to see a face and hear a voice and know that there's like a beating heart behind it. It's interesting. You mentioned story, and you've mentioned that a couple of times as well. And I think that's one of the challenges also is when people do venture onto social, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever, very often it's promotional, it's features and it's products, but that's not what necessarily leads people to discover you. And it's certainly not what drives engagement. You mentioned story, like I said, a couple of times. How important has that element of your presence been?
There's a framework on social media that we use that I can teach everybody right here, right now. It's very simple. We call it the 4 Ps of social media. The first P is personal posts. You want to make posts that say who you are as a person. The second P is professional posts. You should make posts that say what you do for a living and why you're the best at it. The third P is a purposeful post. This is a post that makes me feel something positive. Don't go posting about vaccines and Trumps and all that crap. Make me feel something positive, like make me laugh, make me cry in a good way, motivate me, inspire me, but invoke emotion. And then the fourth P is a poll, P-O-L-L. Now, we don't actually suggest using the poll feature on most platforms, but it's a P and it's easy to remember, but it really just means ask a question.
Yeah.
Ask a question. And so we follow this process in our social. And the reason we follow this process, Kerry, is this is the process in which you build relationships in real life.
Yeah.
You usually meet through something personal. You share a personal neighborhood, a grocery store, a coffee shop you go to. Maybe it's a gym that you visit. Maybe it's a movie that you like. We're usually connected to people through some type of personal thing, right? We're both parents, whatever it is. Then what is the first question we always ask people when we get to meet them? What's the first question we ask? When you meet someone, Kerry, for the first time, what's one of the first questions you ask?
What do you do? It's something about them, right?
What do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? We always ask that. It's a natural question. It's a natural progression. Now, why do we do that? Because we want to see if we can maybe serve you or you can serve me, right? So it's okay online to be like, this is what I do and I'm the best at it. It just can't be all that you post. It's got to be a part of a flow. So in real life, we meet through something personal, then we share professional, then we go into purposeful. If the relationship gets anywhere, we share a laugh. Somebody tells a joke. There's a moment, right? There's some sort of connection. That's an emotional. And then what do? We start asking questions. What's your favorite color? Do you ever want to have kids? Where have you lived before? Why do you do what you do? And so we just want to follow that same process online. Same exact process. And no matter where somebody jumps in and finds you, if they find you unprofessional, next they're going to see something purposeful. You're going to make them laugh. Then you're going to ask them a question, which is going to get them to engage. Then they're going to see your personal. So it's very simple. 4 Ps. You're telling a story online of who you are, what matters to you, and how other people can be a part of it. And in doing so, you really build a tribe that will support you and build your business.
You made such a good point, and it makes perfect sense, but I don't think I've ever put it together in exactly the way that you did just now, which is, you ask questions. You're not, constantly talking about or trying to sell. And I think we've probably all come across that person, whether it's at a networking event or maybe they live down the street from us, who every time we get in front of them, they're, pushing, shoving their product or shoving their service down your throat and trying to get you to take a bite without gagging on it. And what do we do when we see those people? We usually run the other way, or we pretend we're sick, or we say something like, I have to go home and relace all of my shoes, like any excuse to get out of there. And that's the same thing on social. Like, 100%.
Do you know what the most viral post in history is?
I don't.
What color is this dress?
Oh, God, yes. Is it yellow and gold or black and blue?
Right. It's the most viral post in history. Why? Because it follows a very simple format. It asks a question. The question is one sentence. You don't have to click the more button to read it, right? There's a lot of times I'll have clients, they're like, dude, I asked a question. I go to the post, they wrote an essay, and then if they're in, they're like, what do you think? I'm like, bro, that's not how it works. The question is the first sentence. Don't make me click more. That's too much work. And I should be able to respond with 1 or 2 words. So that post, what color is this dress? That's all it said. There it was. There was conflicting views of what people saw. They were able to respond with 1 or 2 words, and it became the most viral post in history. So you just got to follow that model.
Yeah, that is such a great point. Oh my gosh, I forgot that. By the way, what did you see when you saw that dress?
I saw gold. I think it was white and gold or pink and gold, something like that. But yeah, I saw gold.
I saw white and gold. So I was actually still working in the news industry when that particular post was made. And of course, because there's not other things to talk about, we talked about that on the news. And I did see gold and white. And then with a little bit of perspective change, I saw the black and blue. So you can change minds too, by the way.
That's right. I agree.
We've talked about all this cool stuff that I wasn't planning on talking about, but we probably need to have it back for another episode. Let's move now into like all of this stuff that you learned from growing your own dealership and then helping others grow theirs in a way that was entirely new, to your speaking career and of course your show, Rise and Grind, and the 800% Club. How did you take what you learned working with dealers and use it to help others sort of unlock their full potential? Like, what is the process for that? And how do you do it? How do you unlock your potential?
The most interesting thing that I learned as we started to spread out and make a bigger impact is most people have the same different problems. That's what I say. I know that sounds really weird. You're like, what do you mean same different, right? I'm like, it's the same stuff over and over again, just at different seasons. But there's a pattern that every business seems to go through. And the biggest obstacle in that pattern that I found is comfort. They reach a certain level of success and they get comfortable in that success. And they speak that they want more. They know that there's more potential there. They feel it. Oh, this place just has so much potential and we're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And I'm like, okay, great. Change your CRM. They're like, no.
Not that.
No, that's a big deal. Like, that's a big overhaul. I've been using this CRM for a while. I'm like, all right, cool. Fire 4 people and get 20 cars a month out of each salesperson instead of 10. They're like, well, right? And so they say they want it, but actually doing the uncomfortable things it takes to get it is very, very challenging for most people, especially those that have been successful. Mm-hmm. What I've found in my own journey and story is that when our back is against the wall and we're struggling to freaking get $3 to put gas in our gas tank, that's when we're willing to do the shit, whatever it takes to get the $3. right? But when we have how X dollars in the bank and we're driving nice cars and we're hanging out at the country club playing golf, we see there's more there, but we're not really willing to dig to get it.
Is it because there's more on the line? Like we feel like we have more to lose? Is that part of it? Because I deal with a similar thing with clients of my own who, they want media or they want to get better at, being on camera for whatever, client pitches or Zoom calls or whatever. But the idea of doing it because they have had success or they've managed to get to this stage without it, that part is the challenge. Like, yeah. And is it because they've reached a certain, like a level of status or a level of success, and now we're afraid of rejection and we're afraid of lowered status and we're afraid of fucking it up?
Fear is a big part of it. The natural state of humanity is to go into a state of comfort. It's a natural state. It's very unnatural to push the limits. This is why our body tells us we're in pain, even though there's levels we could tolerate more, tells us to quit when we're working out, tells us to stop running. Right. So a lot of it is fear. A lot of it is the natural state of humanity to fall into comfort. But mostly what I've found, Kerry, since you opened the door, is that we are pack animals. And as pack animals, there's something that I call the standard of average, right? So if you look at it economically in the United States of America, 80% of people are in this middle class kind of bucket, right? Then you have 15% of people that are below the middle class bucket, which is a dangerous space. It's dangerous, right? When you're in poverty, it's very dangerous. Yeah. There's also 5% that are above the 5%ers, the ones making 400,000 plus, right? It's the 5%ers. That is an incredibly dangerous position to be in as well. Look at the most wealthy people on this planet, Elon, Trump, Gates, all of these people. What happens when you reach that level of wealth? Constantly under attack. Yeah. Constantly, right? Oprah and The Rock just tried to do something for Hawaii, right? They're like, oh, we're going to each put in $5 million and we're going to do a fund for Hawaii. Oh, everybody's like, what? You're billionaires. You're only giving $5 million. Like constant attack. So our society has shown that it is dangerous to stand out from the crowd. The safest thing to do is be a part of the pack. Wolves run in packs. If you see a lone wolf, that's a dead wolf, right? The alpha lion, this whole alpha lion thing that people talk about, that's the most dangerous position to be in, is the alpha lion. It's always under attack. If it gets hurt, it's out, right? Alpha lions actually have the shortest lifespan. Yeah. Elephants, huge, massive animals. They run in packs because it's safer to be in the herd. And so we have created a society where there is safety in not standing out, not being exceptional. So it's a very dangerous position. So I think people have fears. People have a natural desire to be comfortable. And we've programmed people, society, we've programmed them to stay in the standard of average, what is acceptable, and not stand out. And that holds a lot of people back from doing so.
We're on the same wavelength because I say the same thing all the time. I call it the caveman brain. It's like, if you make a mistake, they kick you out of the cave and then you're, on the horizon and all the predators are coming after you. How do you help people break through that so they can be, the outlier, the 5%, they can unleash is the word I'm looking for, or unlock that potential?
Yeah, it's interesting that you used the word caveman, because in our business, I use that word often. I'm like, how do we make this so easy that a caveman can do it, right? It's all about simple systems and processes that we teach that over time help people break out. It's not, hey, you need to stand out and be the absolute best because then they freak, right? No, that's dangerous. I don't want to do that. So instead I say, hey, I'm going to give you 5 simple steps that you can do in the morning every single day that are going to ultimately lead to an extraordinary life. Never hit the snooze button. Don't touch your phone first thing in the morning. Write down your gratitude and goals. Take care of the physical. Send out an encouraging message. Do those 5 things every day, right? And we start there. And when people start doing that, my clients, that's where I start with every client. When they start doing that, they're like, oh, wow, I've got more energy. I'm starting to see things a little bit different. Look how far I've come. I've got some gratitude. They're writing their goals, right? Then I'm like, okay, here's another process. It's called the 8531 formula. The 8531 formula is something we use in automotive. 8 leads should turn into 5 appointments, should turn into 3 people that show up in your dealership, which should turn into 1 car deal at least. So let's use the 8531 formula on every salesperson you have to make sure they sell 1 car a day every day they're at work. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do that. So what I'm really doing is taking them from a 100 car a month dealership to a 300 car a month dealership over the course of maybe 12 to 18 months. But we're not talking about 300 cars. We're talking about 1 car a day per salesperson. That's it. And here's the formula. So that's how we're able to break them out, is we just don't really tell them that that's what we're doing. Instead, we make it so easy that a caveman can do it, and they just have to take the actions. And then all of a sudden they'll have an aha and be like, oh, wow, I'm doing way more than I ever could before. And once you break people out, there's no putting them back in the box.
It's interesting. It's basically an equation, but it's just, let's not think about the answer right now. Let's just think about these sort of micro steps that we're taking to get there. And you replicate this every single day, and then you see the growth. And it sounds so simple, do these 5 things. And the truth is, we probably have heard somewhere along the line a similar message. You do this, do this, do this. But very few of us actually act on it because we think the answer has to be, we're scared, and we think the answer is something much more complicated perhaps than it actually is. We get bogged down with all the detail, and then we get overwhelmed, and we're like, well, fuck it, I'm comfortable where I am.
No doubt. And that's why it's important to have a coach, be a part of a community that's going to continue to push you. The accountability has to be there. Harvard and Yale did a study on how long it biologically takes to make or break a habit, right? There's always been how long does it take to make or break a habit? So they did a study, and biologically, in order to create a new neural pathway in your brain, it takes 67 days before something becomes easier to do than to not do. 67 straight days of execution.
Don't do the 21 days. People throw that number around all the time, and I know that one's not accurate because I tried it.
It doesn't work. And don't get me wrong. I mean, some things work for some people, but biologically, when we get down to the biology, it takes 67 days to create a neural pathway. And I see this in my kids when we practice riding a bike and so on and so forth. Like, it's just these reps. It's just rep after rep after rep after rep. And then one day it clicks. And now they don't know how to not ride a bike, right? And it's the same thing. So understanding that it's a longer process to create the neural pathway, that's why you have to get in groups. You have to get in community. You have to have a coach. You have to have someone to hold you accountable. Otherwise, you will do just that. You'll say, screw it. Now I'm overwhelmed. It's too much. Da, 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 da. It's like, no, just do this and do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again, and have somebody there to kick you in the tail when you don't feel like doing it, because you're not going to always feel like doing it.
Oh, yeah. Don't wait for the motivation. If you wait for the motivation, it ain't ever happening. It's interesting. So to sort of bring this back full circle, you talked about, you need a coach or somebody that's guiding you and holding you accountable and mentoring you and giving you obviously advice and suggestions, tips, et cetera, tactics, strategies, et cetera. But in the very beginning of this conversation, you mentioned that when you were working with people, you'd work with them, you do a workshop, and then, they'd all fall back into their old patterns. Did you know that when you first started working with them, or is it this sort of epiphany or realization that it generally takes this long and this is how people operate and these are their fears, and then you were able to bring it all together?
No, it's really interesting. So I knew and had read the study on the 67 days a long time ago, over a decade ago. And I would teach it in the dealership with all of my employees. I'm like, all right, man, 67 days, 67 days. You got to create, whether it was objection handling, sales trading, product demos, whatever it was, I'd tell them, don't worry that you suck at it right now. You just got to do it every day. In 67 days, I promise you won't be able to unride that bike. So then I go out and I'm following these other people's model because that's what they've always done. And a year in, that's when it hits me. Like, this is dumb. Like, the things that I know to be true, I'm not even applying as I'm building out my own business because I'm too busy focused on, actually, it was probably a lot of self-doubt. I'm too busy looking at what other people are doing, thinking, oh, I need to do it that way, versus having the confidence of knowing this is what what I know, and I need to stick with what I know, even if nobody else is doing it that way. Right. So it did take a year. So I knew it, but I wasn't applying it. Now we apply it.
So tell me a little bit about your show, Rise and Grind.
Yeah. So the show is motivation, education, inspiration. We're live Monday through Friday at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. We go for about 35 minutes. Obviously, it's recorded, pops into a podcast, so on and so forth. We do celebrity interviews. I've interviewed lots of people on the show. We usually do interviews on Fridays, but it's really just a space that I created. Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem in 2017, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. And the world went bonkers. Do you remember that?
How could I forget? Yeah.
The world went bonkers, and there was so much division and hate, and it was just so ugly online. It was evil incarnate, right? And I kept popping online and seeing all of this, and it really was bothering me. Like, not just, oh, I'm kind of annoyed, like bothering me. And I do believe that if something really bothers you, that's God's way of saying you should do something about it. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do something about it. What can I do? You can't make a billion people stop being ugly, right? And so I was like, well, I can't do that. But what I can do is I can create a space, just a tiny little corner of the internet where there's no politics, there's no negativity ever, there's no division. It's all inclusive. Everyone gets a seat at the table. And it'll always just be motivation, education, inspiration, celebrity interviews, and thought-provoking conversations. And so I went live January of 2018 at 5:30 in the morning. And I chose 5:30 because it was the only time I knew that my kids wouldn't be up. My wife wouldn't need anything. My employees wouldn't need anything. It's the only reason I chose 5:30 is it's the only way I could be consistent. And I went live for the first time. And within a matter of months, we had a Facebook group with 30,000 people where we were getting hundreds of thousands of people watching the show. And we ended up having a live event. We raised millions of dollars for different charities. I've spoke on stages all over the world because of it. The majority of my clients for the 800% Club came through that show. They found it in some way, shape, or form. It's completely transformed my life, my family's life. Like, it was all just one decision to create a little space. God put it on my heart. Said, hey, go do this. And yeah, it's been the craziest thing ever. Seriously.
Congratulations on all that success. It sounds amazing. And I can't wait to check it out. 5:30, I'll do my best.
95% of our viewers do not watch live.
I love watching live. I mean, I did live for 20 years when I was in the news industry. It's fun. It's exciting. It feels a little more raw. It feels a little more real. My kids are up at that hour, though. So God bless you. I don't know how you keep yours asleep, or did anyway.
Oh, just let them stay up all night. That's what we figured out. Just
is that how you do it?
Yeah, you just let them stay up late, and then they sleep in late.
I'm going to try that today.
I will tell you on the weekends, my wife and I go to bed before all of our kids on Fridays and Saturdays, even the 2-year-old. The 2-year-old's up partying with her brothers and sisters, and my wife and I get in bed, we go to sleep, we wake up in the morning, we find them all over the place. It's awesome.
It's funny because it wasn't all that long ago when the idea of going to bed at 7:30 on a Friday night would have been horrifying. And now I'm like, score, man.
Let's go.
I'm going to feel amazing tomorrow morning. I never do, because inevitably I've been woken up at least a dozen times with milk and potty and nightmares and the whole nine.
You have how many kids?
Three. Not even close to as many as you.
How old are they?
They are, my oldest is 12. My middle guy is 6. And I'm sorry, 6. He's 8. And my youngest is 6. Yeah.
So 12, 8, and 6. 2 girls and a boy?
Girl's the oldest. Yep. And the middle and youngest are boys. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Yeah. 2 boys and a girl. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And likewise. Oh my gosh. And yours are how old now?
So I have a 24-year-old, and then my wife and I had 7 kids together. The 24-year-old was with an ex-girlfriend of mine. And so in the house with my wife, we have a 14. She just turned 14. So 14, 11, 9, 8, 6, 4, and 2.
Oh my, God bless you, man.
And six girls. 6 girls, 2 boys.
6 girls and 2 boys. Well, my hat's off to you, because you look like you slept last night.
Yes. I get lots of sleep. My wife is super kind. So I sleep 4 hours and 20 minutes a night, right? So My wife handles things. If anything goes off in that 4-hour, 20-minute window, my wife handles it, period. Like if the house is on fire, she'll put it out. She'll let me know when I wake up. And so she lets me get that window of sleep, which I'm thankful for. And anything outside of that is fair game. But I get my rest. My wife's very kind.
She's a keeper.
She is a keeper. She homeschools all the kids, everything. She's amazing.
Amazing. Well, congratulations rather to both of you. That's quite a feat and quite a success. Hey, so before we wrap, we've been talking a lot about your social media. We've been talking a lot about your storytelling. If somebody's interested in seeing what you do on social, or perhaps learning a little bit more about you as a speaker or as a show host or as a coach, where should they go to find more information about you?
Yeah, actually, the best thing I love to do, I like to exchange value right out the gate. And so if they go to themorning5.com, they can download my free ebook, which is the Morning 5 Simple Steps to an Extraordinary Life that I touched on a little bit earlier. Yeah. And in that book, it kind of tells my story a little bit and then also gives them the science behind these 5 steps and how they can make an impact in their lives. Download the ebook, practice the morning routine, and then if you find it valuable, just type in Glenn Lundy. You can find me everywhere online, and I would love to connect.
You are literally everywhere. Glenn, it's been fantastic having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, this has been great, Kerry. I really appreciate it. I just got back from Italy, so this is my first podcast back, and it's been full of energy, and I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I lied. One more question. Where did you go in Italy?
So my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter and I, it was her 14th birthday on the 23rd. And we went to the Amalfi Coast. We went to a city called Ravello. My buddy Steve got married there. And then from there, we went to Pompeii and checked that out. And then we went to Naples, and then we went to Rome. And we spent a couple of days in Rome and just got back.
That is a heck of a 14th birthday.
Yes, it was awesome.
You have a lot to live up to for the others.
Well, she's my traveler. She does a lot of traveling with me. Yeah. We try very hard, Kerry, to allow each of our kids, not just allow, we try very hard to discover our kids' like seeds, what really moves them. And then we try to fertilize those seeds, right? And so Savannah loves to travel. So I take her with me. She goes on work trips, so on and so forth. My son, Joel, he loves to like work in the garden with his mama. That's what he loves to do. So we let him kind of do that, right? So I don't feel, my wife sometimes feels, but I never feel guilty or feel obligation to make sure we spend the same on each kid and all that stuff. I'm like, no, let's make sure each kid feels seen, heard, and significant in their own way. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they don't all feel seen, heard, and significant.
I love it. Wait, say that last part again.
Hopefully they don't all feel seen, heard, and significant in Italy. Like they have to go to Italy.
Oh, yeah. Or in Australia or some other far-flung place.
Right, exactly.
I do love it, though. It makes perfect sense. Mine are, it's funny how different they can be, raised in the same house by the same parents with the same experiences. And yet their strengths and weaknesses, the things that they love, are all so incredibly different.
To me, my children have really been proof of God, because it just doesn't make sense scientifically for all of these kids to be in the same house with the same parents in the same environment and be so drastically different. I mean, I got one little girl that's blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm like, where the heck did she come from? My wife's got brown hair. All the other kids have brown hair, brown eyes. She comes out with blonde hair and blue eyes. And it's just like, it's amazing, right? Science can't really explain some of these things. So it's got to be God as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. And then when you have 7, you probably have a better chance of getting a couple of different ones too.
Yeah, very true, right? We keep it mixed up.
I love it. Glenn, that's probably another show.
We could go into that. I'm down.
Absolutely. Again, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. Been an honor, Kerry. Appreciate it.